Congratulations! You've been invited to interview in an MBA program. However, they've given you an option. You can choose to interview with a member of the Adcom, a current student, or an alum. Now your joy turns to stress. Which one will you choose? Relax. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the pros and cons of each interviewer option and give you tips for each one. And who am I? My name is Maria. I'm a Harvard Business School alum, former board member of AGAC, and the founder of Applicant Lab, the online platform that replaces the need for traditional admissions consulting. In Applicant Lab, I often put in a hurry shortcuts, and this video is no different. If you're in a hurry, then you need to know that my order of preference for interviewers is, number 1, the Adcom, then current students, and then alums are my last choice. First, we have the Adcom members. As you'll recall, this is my first choice of whom to interview with, and this is because these people are pros. Their demeanor is going to be the most professional, and also their anti-bias filters will be the strongest. More on that in a minute. Also, while all interview reports are treated equally by the Adcom, to the extent that the Adcom member will be in the committee when the decisions are being made, there is a chance that this person might be able to pull for you just a little bit more than candidates who interview with somebody else. That having been said, the Adcom members are interviewing tons of people. This means that they have seen a very broad swath of candidates, including the superstars. Because of this, they might be just a teeny bit harder to impress. Also, they might be interviewing as many as 6 or 8 candidates in a day. This means that they might be exhausted when they meet you. Here's a tip, regardless of who you interview with. Try not to be the person who goes right before lunch or at the very end of the day. Research has shown that we tend to be more negative when our blood glucose levels are low. Anyway, in my humble opinion, the benefits of interviewing with an Adcom outweigh the cons, especially if you are a confident interviewer or if your profile is strong. Just make sure you have really reviewed everything in your application beforehand, since this person is far more likely to have read your entire profile as compared to a student or an alum who probably has only seen your resume beforehand. Moving on, you might interview with a second-year student. I also like this option very much because, for starters, they actually go to the school and therefore know it well. If you've done your homework on the program, you're going to look that much stronger since the student might have first-hand experience with the resources you mention. Also, a lot of candidates don't realize this, but all schools that use second-year students interviewers train them, and many schools specifically give them anti-bias training. This is important because this training teaches them to catch themselves if they feel a bias against someone who's not like them. For example, if an extrovert might feel biased against an introvert. Finally, a second-year student was in your shoes just 2 years ago. They might be a little bit more optimistic than a perhaps jaded Adcom member, and they might feel easier to connect with since they can empathize firsthand with what you're going through. So what are the potential downsides of interviewing with a second-year student? Well, for starters, as well-trained as they are, they're not quite as experienced as the Adcom. Secondly, since they were in your shoes just 2 years ago, yes, they can empathize more with you, but also their BS meters are going to be on high alert, since they know that some applicants might try to embellish or exaggerate their role in certain stories. So, honesty is the best policy regardless of whom you're interviewing with, but especially with second-year students. My tip for second-year students is to make sure that your knowledge of the program is super solid. Make sure you don't reference an outdated class that is no longer offered, and that you use the correct terminology for the school. For example, do they have learning teams, or do they call them study groups instead? Finally, interviewing with an alum. The good news is these folks interview the least amount of people. They might only interview 1 or 2 people a year, which means, frankly, that they might be easier to impress since they won't be mentally comparing you against dozens or perhaps hundreds of other candidates. They're also the most likely to have fond feelings for the program, since they no longer have the stress of attending class or of recruiting. So their warm and fuzzy feelings might be the highest of any of the 3 groups. That having been said, alumni interviewers tend to be more of a wild card. Many of them, if they received any training at all, had that training years ago. This tends to result in a potential for less professional conduct. For example, I've had Applicant Lab clients tell me horror stories of an alum interviewer texting in the middle of an applicant's response, or another interviewer flat out accuse an applicant of lying about their accomplishments in the middle of the interview. Finally, and this one might be a bit of a double-edged sword, an alum might not be up to date with the latest happenings at the school. Now, this can work in your favor if you haven't done as much homework on the program, but it can be suboptimal if you've done all of this research and the alum frankly has no idea what you're talking about. And how do I know that this happens? Because I do admissions interviewing for my college alma mater, and this happens to me all of the time. The best way to win over an alum interviewer is to appeal to their sense of nostalgia. They really wouldn't be volunteering to give up their precious time to interview if they didn't just love the school. This means to keep the questions you have for them at the end light and positive. Also, if you happen to reference something that they don't know about, please be patient and friendly in explaining what it is that you're talking about. Regardless of who you interview with, be well prepared, be yourself, and you'll be fine. Now, if you liked these tips, you'll love Applicant Lab's $49 MBA Interview Lab. For less than 1/10 the cost of what other consultants want to charge you for a mock interview, you'll get brainstorming and mapping modules with in-depth analyses and school-specific research done for you along the way. Check out the free trial now at applicantlab.com/MBA-interviews. Thank you so much and good luck with your interview.